Good morning, everyone. My name is not Greg Nibbler. We'll address that non-elephant in the room. And on today's show, Mr. Zuckerberg goes to Washington again. The Facebook CEO will appear before Congress soon, but why? And will there be many memes? Spoiler alert, yes, there will be. Also, we'll talk to Dan Magnazuski, co-founder at ACV Auctions, about a slick device that boosts your confidence when buying a car. Kevin Freeberger, Director of Identity Programs at Valid, is going to talk to us about facial recognition as a part of company security. And we're also going to talk to Wade Foster, CEO and co-founder of Zapier, a platform that promises to save you tons of time and work. And dig this, it's a totally remote company. All this and more coming up on Digital Trends Live. As mentioned before, my name is not Greg Nibbler. That might be a problem for you. I don't know. My name is actually Caleb Dennison. I am joined today by Adrienne Warner.
Good morning.
Adrienne, thank you for being here and saving my butt.
Thank you, Caleb, for being the Gregstitute.
You know, it's difficult to fill Greg's shoes. I mean, the
really
guy comes in here every single morning and just knocks this stuff out for 2 hours straight.
He nails the news.
I have no idea how he does it, and I have no idea how I'm going to do it. But you know what? We're going to do the very best we can.
That's right.
And I think we should just jump into our first topic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mark Zuckerberg
That's
heading
fine.
back to Congress again. Do you remember the last time this happened?
Do we remember? I feel like the headline that was really stuck in my mind was "Get your popcorn out. It's time."
Get your popcorn, salt your peanuts, or whatever nut you prefer. Maybe grab a beverage of your choice, because
really
it could be another fun one. Of course, we're making fun of all the memes that we saw coming out of the last one, when Mark Zuckerberg basically had to explain to Congress what the internet was. This time, it might be a little bit different. Maybe he's going to have to explain what cryptocurrency is.
He's going to Congress to testify in front of a U.S. House Committee of Financial Services. Essentially, they are exploring the proposed cryptocurrency, Facebook's proposed cryptocurrency Libra, whether it's going to rival the U.S. dollar, whether it poses any privacy or trading or, national security issues. So they're going to be jumping into all of that very soon, and it's going to be a ride.
Yeah, I mean, cryptocurrency is not new,
Nope.
but this is the first time such a large company has proposed to create its own currency, and there's a lot of concern there about whether it could be used for money laundering, whether it could circumvent the U.S. dollar, and what it might do to foreign markets. And then, of course, can Facebook really be trusted with cryptocurrency when they have been facing down so many privacy concerns? In fact, the last time that CEO Mark Zuckerberg was at Congress was to deal with all of the privacy stuff.
Right.
And
the 2016 election. And so, yeah, this could open an entirely new can of worms for Facebook.
Yeah. There's been a lot of doubt about whether Facebook could pull off its cryptocurrency. Many companies have come out to speak out on this and say, hey, this is absolutely ridiculous. Why don't you just give up while you've got the chance? But it doesn't appear that they have any intention of doing that. I mean, if Zuckerberg's going to Congress, I think they're going to press forward.
Yeah, it sounds like at least that's the attempt to, although, the chances of Libra actually launching in the digital wallet, Calibra, seems to kind of be narrowing down further and further. And so this is really a huge attempt, to talk to the U.S. government, make a really big push for the case, and whether or not it's actually feasible.
Right. Yeah, Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal even
stepped away entirely.
Yeah, they've backed off and said, you know what, all this scrutiny that you're facing, it doesn't look so great.
Maybe don't want to get in bed with you. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely don't want to get in bed with Mark Zuckerberg on this particular one. So we'll have to see how this plays out. I believe that he is scheduled to appear October 23rd. So we have, 13 days, just shy of 2 weeks until this happens.
Plenty of time to queue it up.
But depending on how this goes, I think this might really either spell the end for Libra, or it's going to take a radical jump forward. It kind of depends on how things go there.
I really just can't wait for Zuckerberg to explain, cryptocurrency
Explaining
to
the
US
internet is bad enough. Explaining cryptocurrency and the blockchain that underlies it. It could be really, really enjoyable for us to watch, but in an entertaining facet. But I don't know that this is necessarily going to be a great thing for Libra, Facebook, or poor Congress.
Or poor Congress. So I don't know about poor Congress, but Yeah, you really don't know if in an purely entertainment stance, you really don't know who you're rooting for in this instance.
Unfortunately, you do not.
Just watching it all
Well,
crumble.
now that we've taken some time to make fun of Facebook and Zuckerberg, how about we make fun of ourselves
I
for
love
a minute?
it. I love
a little
making fun of
humility goes a
myself.
long way, especially in the tech news space. So let's move on to our segment, Read 'em and Weep. This is a moment where we allow our producer Jake to find some embarrassing stuff that you have posted on social media.
We haven't seen them yet.
Which, by the way, we are live on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, Periscope, YouTube. I'm probably forgetting one there. We're live all over the place.
The major ones. I think you did quite well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Leave your comments. We'll respond to them a little bit later in the show. But let's start with this first Read 'em and Weep Facebook post, it looks like, from Amy Smith. This is about our article, Silicon Valley Startup Wants to Put Your DNA in a Vault on the Moon. I already love it. Amy says, well,
coffin.
They certainly don't want mine. My DNA comes from a cesspool, not a gene pool. So many health issues and obesity that mainly is inherited. No way should my line continue beyond that point that it has. I hope they screen them before they store them. Well,
Amy, I appreciate that self-deprecation.
I mean, she's very honest there.
Yes, she is.
You know, Amy, I think you're still a good person, and you know it's okay to be on this earth. That you don't want to procreate and spread yourself around. Hey.
I think that takes a level of self-awareness that probably many people on Facebook do not have.
I would agree. I think this is the most forthright thing I've seen on Facebook in quite some time.
And you know what? She makes a point. If there's there's limited space on the moon isn't that big. So if we're storing a bunch of DNA on the moon, although DNA is itty bitty tiny, but you know, maybe we don't want everybody's DNA. I'm not going to get into that bucket of worms.
No, who gets to decide?
Who gets to decide? I hope Silicon Valley certainly does.
No, those are the last people that I want deciding whose DNA goes to the moon. Let's move on to the next one.
The
Nikagobobo.
The smallest full-frame mirrorless Sigma FP is also one of the cheapest. I'm assuming that's a camera. My poor hands would cramp and drop on the second day of trying to use it. Sad emojis.
Yeah.
I have the opposite problem. Anytime something too large, like, you know, an Xbox controller, an XL phone, I can't operate those dang things.
You can't get your mitts around it?
I can't get, like, tiny crab hands.
Oh, Do you game much?
I do, actually. I'm kind of like a specialty
right?
gamer, so, you know, I stick with Nintendo and, you know, PlayStation, but Xbox, I'm just too large.
How small? This must be a super small camera.
Super itty-bitty camera. I kind of want to look it up, but I don't know if I'm going to be able
could it be smaller than a GoPro? I didn't see this one, unfortunately.
I didn't either, but, you know, the Nagobobo. Sorry,
Obviously
buddy.
rocking
Not
some
for
big
him.
old hands. Congratulations to you. From Douglas Love about the rise of Skywalker theory explaining why Rey could go dark. He says, honestly, no one is talking about this except to ask, will the movie be entertaining and how many lens flares will there be? Nice jab there at the end. Do you have any, is there really a question about whether the movie's going to be entertaining?
I would hope not. I think people are just like, okay, they're kind of getting tired of all of these, I don't know, releases. It's like, but that's what they're going to do. There's going to be more.
It's Disney.
It's Disney.
For crying out
There's going to
loud.
be 1,000 billion of these properties.
They just launched a streaming service. They got to fill
yeah.
it up with something, and I imagine Star Wars is going to be a huge part of that.
I don't think any of the, any of the recent Star Wars films that have come out have not been entertaining. I think they've all been entertaining.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you go see them?
I don't go to see them. I wait for them to come to me,
That's
but I
fair.
see them.
You see
I
them.
absolutely
You
see
enjoy them.
Sometimes I see them on a plane.
Great.
Sometimes in my bedroom on a laptop. You never know.
Plane,
On a train.
Green eggs and ham.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
What's the next one? I hope this one insults me directly. Sanjay Highs.
Oh, I do have
about
to
it
pick
does. Wow, what a guess. About the Vizio P-Series Quantum 4K HDR TV unboxing and basic setup. Dennison, I'm waiting for OnePlus TV review. Dennison. I love being called Dennison.
I love being called Warner, so I feel you, yeah.
Listen, Warner, hold on. This is
Hold
my
on,
show,
hold
okay?
on, Dennison.
Yeah, I know you're waiting for the OnePlus TV review. So is everybody. Pretty much the entire country of India wants me to review this thing. Problem is, they don't sell them here, folks, and I can't get one. So if you want to come together, package one up, send one out to me here in Portland, Oregon. I'll give you the address later in the show, not my personal address, the company address. Send one here. I will review the ever-loving good stuff out of that thing.
Or we could send you to India.
Or I guess I could go to India. You know, that would be
cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
Ship the reviewer to the TV.
Yeah.
I'd be down with that. So if you want to pull together and buy me a ticket to India, go for it. I'll be right out there and we'll review it together.
Probably
How would
about the
that
same
be?
price, you know, the TV, the plane ticket.
We could have a party.
We could have a really great review party.
This is actually a TV that is highly anticipated by a lot of folks. It's going into India and China, I think. First markets that it's going into. It's one of those where it's not going to be coming to the U.S. right away. And it's meant to be remarkably affordable and like a whole bunch of next-gen tech in a TV. Maybe it has 5G built in. We don't know about it yet, but yeah, I'm really excited. I want to review that TV too. Sorry, they're not sending me one. I'll do it as soon as it comes to me. Or like I said, buy me a ticket to India. I'll be right there.
I'm really excited to do a dramatic rating of this. Ma truth fe Eddie. See the wonders of the universe with these awe-inspiring photos of space. Earth is flat. NASA lies. Space is fake. I'm so thankful to be awake.
My truth, Eddie, you so woke. He's a flat earther.
He's a flat earther, or he could just be making fun of things. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's true, but I mean, it is a good time to be woke, isn't it?
It is. It's good to be aware that space exists around us and that 5G won't be trying to kill us.
Space is fake. I'd like to ship him up there and see how fake it feels when he's in the vacuum, unable to breathe and slowly imploding.
Wow,
Okay.
that is a hot take.
No, that I'm not going dark like Ray is supposed to go.
Right.
I'm just, you know, analyzing the science of space, man. That's all it's all about.
Well, let's analyze some more news stories. So something that has been rumored and we have been anticipating for quite a while now is the Pixel Watch, wearable tech from Google, and it could be launching as early as next week.
Which is a surprise. The thing is, everything that could possibly be leaked about the Pixel 4 smartphone,
Right.
which we expect to see at Google's event next week on the 15th, has pretty much come out. We know everything there is to know about the phone. In fact, there's not a whole lot of surprises expected from the event. And then suddenly this. The Pixel Watch. Now, everybody
It was like
expecting...
a bait and switch. They were like putting out all this stuff about the Pixel 4, and then they're like, surprise, guys.
We really do have something
We
for
really
you.
do have something new.
Well,
Yeah.
they were actually, we were all expecting this watch last year at the Made by Google event in 2018, and a lot of people were really disappointed when it didn't show up. But it's supposed to be coming. Now, here's the question. Can Google really compete in the smartwatch space when Apple is just absolutely dominating it right now?
Yeah, they're crushing it right now. It's remains to be seen. I mean, that is the hope for everybody that is looking forward to the Pixel Watch, is whether it actually has, like, you know, reliable fitness tracker tech, whether it can stand up to Apple as kind of the powerhouse in that space. I would assume if anybody could do it, Google could do it, because their phones are incredibly popular. Their operating system is very great, you know.
They've got the attention with the Pixel phones and the amazing cameras. In fact, I think that's really what made their phone successful, was not just the cameras. They really pushed everybody in terms of the cameras, but also the algorithm that that manages the images and changes the images and basically doctors them up to look really great. That stuff is on fire right now, but a Pixel Watch doesn't have any of that.
That's true. Yeah,
So I
think
think really they're going to have to compete in, as you said, the fitness space as well as health.
Health,
I think health is a really big thing right now, especially for smartwatches. We've recently seen Apple pushing their smartwatch, the Apple Watch, into a lot of different medical spaces. They're petitioning Medicare right now, I think, to make it part of their plan.
That's amazing.
It's either Medicare or Medicaid. I just saw this story. It just came out not that long ago.
Remember
But right, but the idea is that it could be more affordable for the elderly, and I mean
great.
that's a great thing. It does heart monitoring.
Right.
It allows you to very easily communicate with others. It's the new "I've fallen and I can't get up" button, right?
It's Life Alert. Yes.
It's Life Alert, basically.
So we'll see if Life Alert is built into the Pixel Watch.
The Pixel Watch.
Something else that, you know, has kind of been speculated. So Google bought, I suppose, or they acquired some watch technology from Fossil recently, and they actually acquired a bunch of their developers and engineers. So we're going to see potentially some of the things that we've really loved about the Fossil wearables in this Google Pixel Watch. So
That would be a
that
smart
remains
play.
To be seen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that at the very least they're going to look really great, and that's a big deal. And I think if they really want to make a splash, they make a watch that works well for women, because I think that is a big problem right now. A lot of these smartwatches are big and bulky. They're not particularly attractive.
Right.
And, you know, in the early days of the smartwatches, you know, females were totally underserved. So if Google comes out with a nice array of different sizes and styles,
that would be fantastic. I really don't particularly love Apple's, you know, bulky kind of squared frame.
off,
I mean, it's not horrible. It's gotten a lot nicer over the years, but like, it's not my favorite. And I haven't bought a wearable yet because like my tiny crab hands, I have tiny wrists.
it kind of goes together.
Kind of goes together. It's all part of the package. Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Are you iPhone or Android?
I am iPhone.
Okay.
So, but I have considered going over to the Pixel. Honestly, the thing that a lot of people who have iPhones would potentially miss is iMessenger. It really sucks to not be on iMessenger.
I would agree. My girlfriend agrees, actually. That's what I miss most about the iPhone. I switched over to an Android phone not that long ago. And while there are things I love about it, Android Auto, for instance, is really, really great. There's so much that I miss, and I think I might just be switching back.
Ooh.
So while I'm excited about the Pixel Watch, I'm not so sure that it's going to be the right call for me if I switch back to iOS.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I hate having to get locked into these different platforms. Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Next story. So this, I think, as a lot of people know, PG&E has shut off power to basically a large portion of the Bay Area and other parts of Northern California.
Yeah.
Something
Over 800,000 customers.
And those are just customers. When you think about a customer being a household or a business, that actually means that it affects far more people. So it's in the millions of people who've been affected by this shutdown. And the reason that they've shut down power, if you haven't heard, is because they're trying to avoid sparking more wildfires.
Right.
You might remember that
really high winds in the area. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Yeah, you might remember the Paradise campfire that, I mean, it spread rapidly last year, was, I believe, due to, you know, the power company and sparking from that.
They have come under fire, no pun intended, for having sparked that fire, and they're trying to avoid doing it again. The campfire destroyed over 13,000 buildings, 85 people died, there were several more injuries.
And people have been, you know, stranded or, you know, waiting for assistance essentially to rebuild their lives for an incredibly long time. So they're preventatively trying to avoid that. However, in doing so, a lot of people are without power and a lot of people are unable to charge their electric vehicles.
And this is California, right? Thousands and thousands of electric vehicles, and I mean, there's a huge fleet of Teslas in this area.
More than any other state in the nation.
So what do you do when there's a power outage? Well, Tesla had a clever idea. They decided to go ahead and get ahead of this thing and send out a notification via the touch screen inside Tesla owners' vehicles. So there was basically a little notification that came up and said, listen, we've been alerted to the fact that they're going to be shutting down power in your area. We strongly urge you to go and charge your vehicle now so that you can continue your drive, which I don't think they realized that this was going to take well over 24 hours. And they basically were going to get 1 or 2 drives out of the thing before it was going to go down.
Yeah, depending on your commute and your use each day. But, you know, these cars get pretty long range off of 100% charge. So hopefully people are able to, you know, kind of switch off a little bit from their electric vehicle. Maybe they have a secondary gasoline-powered vehicle. We'll see.
Maybe they live in their vehicle and, you know, the climate control needs to keep on working. But
maybe they need to keep their... have you ever seen the little, like, crackling fire on the Tesla dashboard? Yes. They need to keep that going to keep warm.
Yeah, at least give them the feeling that they're warmed. Also, Elon Musk tweeted that they are going to be installing solar panels and backup batteries at a bunch of their supercharger stations to try and keep people up and running. But it does open up the question, I mean, when you go with a fully electric vehicle, it's not a hybrid, and so traditional fuel is not an option. What do you do when the power goes out?
Yeah.
And it's turned out that this has been a major impact for the area. It's continuing right now. There's still some 500,000 people without power, and no word yet on when that's going to change. So
yeah, it sounds like they're tentatively planning to put it on halfway today, Thursday, but, you know, due to the wind severity in the area, it may take longer.
And that's just the thing. Every time there's a threat of a fire, you can't just go shutting the power off.
Right.
It needs to be a more permanent solution. But when you think about the thousands and thousands and thousands of miles of power lines, you can't just go and reinforce them
right
away in a year. It's going to take some time. So hopefully we don't see a whole bunch more of this stuff. But, you know, in the meantime, it does open up the question about what do you do if there's a power outage for several days and you own an electric vehicle, you're not going anywhere.
Yep.
Or an electric scooter, if you're relying on that for your transportation.
I feel like that might get a little more juice, a little more mileage.
Maybe.
We'll see. Yeah.
Maybe.
But it does bring up a good point because I mean, the threat of wildfire season is not going away. It's just going to continually worse with climate change. And so, yeah, how are we, responding to this? If Tesla's building solar powered stations, that's a really great solution. But yeah, people are going to have to think about that when they consider buying an electric vehicle in general.
I would like a solar powered storage battery to run my fridge so that all my food doesn't spoil in the middle of all this.
I listened to a story about that on NPR this morning, and
really?
Somebody talking about losing all of their food in a week and how they couldn't rebuy any, and that's horrible.
What about the grocery stores? Unless they're running generators to keep
don't want to smell that.
Yeah, no kidding. Thousands and thousands of pounds of rotting food in Northern California. It's not just dark; it also stinks. What a pain.
What a good headline, though.
No, my heart goes out to those folks that are dealing with that right now. But hopefully, this is saving lives and preventing a whole bunch of damage to people's homes and their welfare. Next up, a little bit more scandalous a story.
Yeah, this is actually an interesting follow-up to something we talked about yesterday, where Apple News had eventually caved into pressure from pro-democracy groups and allowed this protest map in Hong Kong to go on its app store, and now they've actually removed it again.
Yeah, they faced some pressure from China in the way of an article that was run in, it was an op-ed in the People's Daily, which is a Chinese state-owned newspaper. So basically, China's government, saying that the spokesperson said that the app was being used to target and ambush police and was endangering the public in general. And of course, if you're not familiar, there's a lot of protesting going on in Hong Kong right now against the Chinese government because it was supposed to be an autonomous nation, state. And then this extradition issue came up, and it's been ongoing for
since the summer, essentially.
Yeah,
so for
months
months and months, there's been a lot of arrests, a lot of backlash. So yeah, this app was originally, it's still accessible online through a browser. It was originally released to show police activity and violence in the area so people could either avoid it, but now they're saying that people are actually trying to target the police, so Apple removed it because they didn't want to face that backlash. And it's kind of like, do they have actual evidence of this happening, or are they just, caving into pressure from the Chinese government?
Exactly. It seems as though Apple does not want to be implicated at any step in this process for having facilitated violence. And I can certainly understand that, but I'm not sure that there's a ton of evidence, at least it hasn't been presented yet, that hkmap.live, which is the app in question, was actually being used by, and I mean, there are always going to be ne'er-do-wells who use technology for bad purposes. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
But it's not clear that things are quite so cut and dry this case.
Yeah, it seems like Apple is, kind of pulling several apps actually due to this pressure, and you can kind of understand why, considering a lot of their manufacturing takes place in China. They recently pulled a news app called Quartz after the Chinese government gave them some complaints about how it was covering the protests. So that app got removed, and that's a news reporting website, or that's supposed to be just the news, straight up, like it's supposed to be autonomous. Yeah.
So there's some dicey stuff going on there. There's this issue of censorship. Facebook's facing that as well. Would Facebook take down presidential campaign ads if they were blatantly false, was another question that was asked. So this is a big moment, I feel, in our history, where we're taking a look at how these gigantic tech companies decide whether we get access to information or not.
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting to see it all play out.
Indeed it is. Well, Adrienne, thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit. You're making this so much easier. It's, like I said, it's really difficult to fill in for Greg Nibbler.
It really is. You're doing a fantastic job, Godspeed.
Thank you. I'm doing my very best. Folks, we'll be back in just a moment. We're going to talk with Dan Magnuszewski, who, again, is the co-founder and CTO at ACV Auctions. They've got a really slick device that is making purchasing a car much, much easier. Going to have a lot more confidence. We're going to be right back in just a moment with that interview here at Digital Trends Live. Ah, the Tomaton, probably the most ridiculous device ever invented, at least in this century. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live, everyone. My name is Caleb Dennison. I'm filling in for Greg Nibbler today. If you're missing him, sorry, I'm what you get. I'm having a good time today, and we are moving along with our show. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, Periscope, all the platforms. Feel free to give us a comment. We'll be checking those out a little bit later, but right now, we're going to turn our attention to Mr. Dan Magnuszewski. Dan is the CTO and co-founder of basically a vehicle marketplace, dealer-to-dealer vehicle marketplace called ACV Auctions. They've got a pretty slick device that they've just introduced, and we're going to learn about that now. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome to have you. Absolutely. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself and then kind of explain for us what ACV Auctions is and what ACV Auctions does?
Sure. So I'm a software engineer by trade. I've worked in everything from large companies and more recently have been involved in creating startups and in various industries. Prior to that, I was running a incubator and a seed fund here in Buffalo, New York, and I was looking to get back into building companies. And I ran across one of my co-founders who had owned a used car business and saw a lot of the issues of trying to buy used vehicles and be able to sell them. These are really small businesses that really need to get inventory and a constant flow of inventory. So we kind of got involved. He had this idea, and I said, that's something I could build. And my dad's a used car dealer, so I was definitely got the problem of how do you find and buy and sell used vehicles. Right now it's a very archaic process of physical auctions, and we said, the internet revolution hasn't come yet to the automotive industry. We should do something about that.
Yeah, it needs a little bit of modernization for sure. So can you tell me a little bit about the more specific challenges of, with buying and selling cars, especially if you're doing so online? I mean, what are some of the issues that people face? Where's the lack of information in this process?
Sure, yeah. And at our core, our mission is to provide that trust and transparency in the automotive marketplace. How do we have vehicles that are $200 and vehicles that are $250,000? How do we take those vehicles? And really what we do is we have not only technology that allows us to do the best in the industry inspections, but we also have a fleet of people who are out there doing that. So we leverage technology, we leverage people, and really what we do, we go out, we do a full inspection of the vehicle, and we send that vehicle to a live auction that lasts 20 minutes. And in that time, they're bidding on it, and it really gives exposure to these for these car dealers to have access to inventory across the country. And really for us, what we try to do, going back to that trust and transparency, is trying to make it a better experience for them to buy in 20 minutes through an app, as opposed to being right next to the vehicle, physically standing next to it.
So you're trying to basically give the person making the purchase as close to experience of actually standing at the vehicle and being able to check it out themselves. And to help with this, if I understand correctly, you've developed something called virtual lift technology. Can you tell us about this device and what it does for folks?
Absolutely. So about a third of the vehicle is really the undercarriage of a car. So as we're doing these inspections, how do we, a lot of people who do inspections, unless you have a garage with a physical lift that you could put it up in the air, walk underneath it, take a look at what's going on with the muffler and the frame, what we've done is said, we have people across the country that are out in parking lots and in fields doing these inspections. How can we make it so that they could get that full representation of the undercarriage without needing all of the infrastructure and physical equipment needed? So we looked at it and we said, how can we, with an iPhone, we built this device that you put an iPhone in, you drive over it, and it does a full scan of the undercarriage of that vehicle. And so now I always like to use the Google Maps analogy, where you can now have a Google Maps view where you can zoom in and as though you're walking around underneath it, and being able to really trust that what you're seeing is what you're getting. And that's something you can't even do at the physical auctions and the way things have been going over the past 70 years. So we're taking this, not only are we a marketplace, we're really the trusted source to, when you're looking at buying something, you know that it's better than what you could do if you were there yourself.
Well, yeah,
physical auction.
You're not likely to crawl under the car and give it a full inspection that way. So this gives you basically a full-on image of the undercarriage of the car. For the less mechanically inclined of us, what kind of stuff would you be looking for? What do you learn when you are able to actually see underneath the car like that?
Sure, and a lot of areas, there's rust, there's rot. There could be certain frame damage. If you get in an accident, sometimes you can only tell by looking at the frame of a vehicle, because maybe the body was repaired, but that frame wasn't. The catalytic converters are another, so part of the exhaust. There's a lot of precious metals in there. A lot of times people will steal just the catalytic converter out. So how can we tell what's missing? What's the condition? Is it very clean underneath? Is it rotted? And being able to give people that insight, but we can also tell if there's oil leaking and other things. So there's so much going on underneath a vehicle that this was the big inspiration for us, for me and my team, to be able to go out and say, hey, how can we do this and inspect something that nobody else can do without, as I said, literally lifting it off the ground and walking underneath it.
That's super, super cool. So I understand that, right now this is used as part of the auction process as sort of a dealer to dealer or business to business proposition. Are you seeing a lot of dealers using this? And do you think this might be something that will be available to consumers if they go to a car lot? Obviously the dealers purchased the car. They know what they've got. They've seen the imaging. Is that something that you see the dealer starting to share with the end user, the customer who's actually buying the car in the end?
Yeah, and we're in the early stages of rolling this out internally, and everything we're getting is great feedback, so that dealers they want it for their own garages, so that anytime a vehicle's coming in, they can have that image and they can use that to have that transparency with their end user, their end customer that's coming to the lot to buy the vehicle retail. So we see that there's definitely a huge opportunity beyond just our marketplace. And we're making plans on how we roll that out. We also have another product that we've developed, and all these are patent pending devices that we've built, hardware and software. Another one's called AMP, that allows us to get the motor profile of a vehicle, so we know what that engine sounds like. We know, and we can start detecting whether things are going well with that vehicle or if there are issues. So everything what we're trying to do is just really make it more transparent to the users, and then eventually giving that power to the retail customer.
Really, really interesting. I mean, it's almost like these days you walk into a dealership and you demand the Carfax. I can actually see people demanding to see the results of the work that your device is doing here. That's very cool. We were talking about electric vehicles earlier. How does this work with EVs? Is it necessary with EVs? Is there a big difference? Do you look for different things with an electric vehicle?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely differences, and there's less moving parts with an electric vehicle. But these tools definitely apply to what we're doing with Virtual Lift and AMP. For us, we're also developing other electric vehicle specific things that will help provide that trust and transparency around buying this electric vehicle. I may not know as much because most people don't have the history with electric vehicles. So that's really where our technology can come in and help either a used car dealership buy an electric vehicle for the first time, or if it's how do we help provide these tools so that it can even translate down to the end consumer who may be buying their first electric vehicle. And we are seeing more and more adoption from the dealer side in terms of wanting to buy electric vehicles and feeling more comfortable with it, and seeing that demand from the retail users.
Well, Dan, that's really fascinating. Thank you for sharing all this great information with us and kind of spelling out how used car vehicles are going to be sold and dealt with in the future. We really appreciate your time talking with us here at Digital Trends Live.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet. All right, folks, we are live, Digital Trends Live, right here from Portland, Oregon. We're going to take a little bit of a break really quick, and when we come back, we're going to be speaking with Kevin Freeberger. He runs Valid, and he's going to be talking to us about facial recognition technology and how that works with corporate security. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Erin Keeney.
And I'm Riley Wynn.
And this is Real News, the show that helps you decide what movies deserve your money at the box office this weekend.
This first film took home the People's Choice Award at the Toronto Film Festival, but a controversial story has audiences divided. Let's take a look at Taika Waititi's JOJO Rabbit.
You two seem to be getting on well.
She doesn't seem like a bad person. I'm the enemy. You're not a Nazi, Jojo. You're a 10-year-old kid who likes dressing up in a funny uniform and wants to be part of a club.
Yogi? Oh, God.
Nothing makes sense anymore.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely not a good time to be a Nazi.
So JOJO Rabbit takes place during World War II. It's a story about a young German boy who has grand ambitions and dreams to be a Nazi. Now, like most little kids, he has an imaginary friend, but in this film, his imaginary friend is Adolf Hitler. Now, once JoJo discovers that his mom is hiding a young Jewish girl in the attic, of course, the story gets really, really complicated. Now, JOJO Rabbit is a Nazi satire. It's certainly not the first of its kind in cinematic history, but it's also a really heartfelt, endearing, coming-of-age story.
Yeah, and this movie has an A-list cast. It's got Scarlett Johansson, Sam Rockwell, Rebel Wilson, and Taika Waititi, who not only directed and wrote the film, but also plays Hitler in the movie.
A man of many talents. He is also the director of the top highest-grossing films in New Zealand. First was Boy, and then the film Hunt for the Wilder People. He knocked his own #1 record out of the box office. So the two highest-grossing films. But you might know his name from Thor: Ragnarok.
Wow, he goes from superhero blockbuster to a satire about Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
Logical leap right there. It's no surprise, though, that people are divided on this film. But the buzz so far has been mostly positive. Waititi says he originally pitched this idea back in 2011.
Wow.
It was before his success with Thor, and now that he had that success, he was able to get this idea off the ground.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, the timing of it, because maybe this is the more perfect time, you know, as the years went by, 2019 for this film. Well, the controversy, too, is very similar to a 1997 film that this film is being compared to, Life is Beautiful. Also a lighthearted look of the days of the Holocaust in World War II. That took home the best foreign film at the Oscars that year. It was also nominated for Best Picture, but even still today, people are still divided on Life is Beautiful. So it's interesting, the response to that kind of a comedic look at World War II and the Holocaust. What I found so interesting was that both JOJO Rabbit and Life is Beautiful both took home the People's Choice Award at the Toronto International Film Festival. Yeah, so it's certainly resonating with audiences.
It's really resonating with me because I can't wait to see it. Taika Waititi in What We Do in the Shadows as Viago was hilarious. So funny. He killed it as a vampire. I can't wait to see how he plays Hitler too.
Comedy is so subjective, so you're always going to have different opinions on what's funny, what's not funny. But is this film inappropriate or inspired? Well, you can decide for yourself when JOJO Rabbit hits theaters October 18th. So Riley, I feel like we know each other pretty well by now. We go way back, right? So I need to tell you that this next film is one of my biggest fears. Up next, a story about what happens when artificial intelligence gets a little too real. Let's take a first look at JEXI.
The future of smartphones has arrived. Introducing a different kind of digital assistant.
Smells so new.
We use the latest technology to bring you something extraordinary.
Hello, my name is JEXI, and I am here to make your life better.
Whoa, look at that. That's cool.
I will need the passwords to all of your accounts.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Stupid.
Huh?
How can I help you?
Let's get dinner.
You look like you could use a salad fill.
What kind of phone is this?
So Adam Devine, you may know him from Workaholics, right? He plays Phil, a down-on-his-luck, listicle clickbait writer. He's addicted to his phone as well, which sounds a lot like the people that work here at Digital Trends. I'm not gonna lie. But the real havoc ensues when his phone's AI, JEXI, falls in love and becomes obsessed with him. Not only does it make his life a mess, puts him in precarious situations, and even ruins his love life.
So this is kind of like Fatal Attraction, but with Siri. This film, JEXI, is from the writers of The Hangover, so we know it's going to be funny, we know it's going to be raunchy and a little edgy.
Hey,
it's going to be a fun ride. Well, the always hilarious Rose Byrne, she is one of my absolute favorites. She plays the voice of JEXI in the film, but it also stars Justin Hartley from This Is Us and Michael Pena, who's always hilarious. He plays Phil's boss, and then comedian Wanda Sykes. She plays this employee at a genius-like bar who calls all the people that come in to fix their smartphones. She calls them crackheads and just sort of taunts them, you know, with their addiction. So she's always great. I imagine she's going to be a scene stealer in this one. Well, Devine said recently that this is really the perfect comedy for right now. He's saying this is kind of like a cautionary tale when you love your phone more than anything else in life. And I think this comedy, what it's really saying is maybe put down your phone, talk to people again.
Funny enough, though, on the set of this movie, there was not a lot of talking face-to-face. Rose Byrne, who plays the voice of JEXI, they had to obviously record her after the fact and dub her in. So Adam Devine actually wore an earpiece and had people read the lines to him so he could react with JEXI, react with the phone, right? Well, a lot of times that earpiece wouldn't work. So the guy had to go on and perform entire scenes without anyone reading Burns' lines to him.
This guy started as a stand-up comedian, so he can ad-lib like the best of them. And I'm thinking with this cast, too, this is probably like the Improv Olympics or something. I would love to see the outtakes of this film, for sure. It's gonna be great. Well, Riley, on a scale of 1 to 10, serious question, how obsessed are you with your phone?
Oh, boy. That's a tough question.
Putting you on the spot.
I'd have to say probably an 8.5. 8.5, but here at Digital Trends, we have to always be plugged in, always know what's going on.
Yeah.
So I blame a lot of my addiction on work. That's your fault.
Okay.
It's your fault, DT.
Okay, blame them. Yeah, with the cow. 8.5 is not bad. It's not a 10. At least it's not a 10. Yeah. We'll go see JEXI in theaters on October 11th, and make sure you put your phone on silent. Next up, a dark and twisted comedy about class conflict and greed. Let's take a first look at Parasite.
부모님 얼굴도 뵙고 좋더라, 건강들 하시고.
일거리가 없으셔도.
네가 내 대신 얘 과외 선생님 좀 해줘라, 영어.
대학생인 척하라는 거야?
구라를 좀 치지 뭐.
넌 이 좋은 실력으로 왜 미대는 맨날 떨어지냐?
아이씨, 죽을래.
저는 이게 위조나 범죄라고 생각하지 않아요. 참으로 시의적절하다. 부자들이 원래 참 잘 속아.
사모님이 뭐랄까.
풀타임으로 수업 어떻게 하시는지. Is it okay with you? 우리 다송이는 완전 예술가 재질인데.
침팬지를 그린 거죠?
자화상이에요.
역시.
So this is a story of two families, one rich and one poor. The film was done by Korean director Bong Joon-ho. You may know him from The Host, Snowpiercer, Okja. Well, for this horror thriller, he's actually receiving a lot of praise. And he even took home the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival.
That is impressive and making history, too, because that was the first time that a Korean filmmaker received that huge honor at Cannes. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Well, director Bong says about this film, about Parasite, that this is really, really, really heavy on the dark humor, and it just skewers financial inequality. So the focus, of course, is the clashing between the rich and the poor. This is very familiar territory for director Bong. You might remember the film Snowpiercer with Chris Evans, and he said he came up with the idea for Parasite when he was in post-production for that film.
Wow.
Another film that talks about, you know, the clashing between the rich and the poor. Again, very familiar territory for him. It's been getting rave reviews at Toronto. It was at the New York Film Festival as well this month. But in these early previews, in these screenings, Bong asked the audience, okay, when you see the second part of this movie, the later part of this movie, I guess there's a big twist in this movie, please keep it a secret. Don't ruin it for everybody else. So when you see this movie this weekend, don't tell anybody.
I'm not going to tweet
it out.
anybody. Not going to tweet it out. I promise. I promise. This is the fourth time that Bong Joon-ho and actor Kang Go-sung have collaborated. And Song has such a good rapport with director Bong that when he asked him to do this film, Bong didn't tell him anything about his character, didn't tell him anything about the plot. He literally had no information and immediately said yes.
I love when that happens, when a director and an actor have a relationship like that, when it's all about trust and they kind of develop their own shorthand. It's going to be fun to watch. Well, Parasite hits theaters October 11th.
And if you're going to see one movie this weekend, it has to be JEXI. You can get your tickets in advance with Fandango.
Thanks for watching Real News. We'll see you right here next week.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live, everyone. My name is Caleb Dennison, and I am really flying by the seat of my pants right now. Greg Nibbler is out, and I am filling in the best I know how. And let me tell you, that guy has one heck of a job around here. But we're going to have a little bit of fun today. Coming up real soon, we're going to be speaking with Kevin Freiberger. He's going to be telling us some really interesting stuff about facial recognition software. But first, I want to talk to you about Real ID. Are you familiar with this concept of Real ID? This is going to be the new standard for air travel across the United States coming up in 2020. Is your ID Real ID certified? Are you going to have to get a new one? What does that involve? And what about facial recognition? How is that getting involved at airports and in other secure places that we might go? Not just here in the U.S., but abroad. So we want to bring in right now Kevin Freiberger. He is the Director of Identity Programs at Valid. Kevin, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
So I travel a lot, and you know, I have right now. I just got my Washington State ID because I moved across the river from Oregon, and I was actually hoping that it was going to be compliant with this Real ID program. And yet I go to the airports and I'm seeing all these notifications that if it doesn't have like a star or some sort of emblem or something on it, that I can't use it to travel. Fortunately, I happen to have a passport, so that's okay. But for tons of people who don't, this whole Real ID program is coming up, and it's throwing a wrench into the works. So I want to get around to talking about that. But before we do that, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what your company does?
Sure. I've been in the identity management industry for about 15 years. I started in 2004. And our company builds driver's license systems for state government. So at the end of the day, we're printing a plastic card and sending that to customers, but there's a lot of software that goes into that. So we build that software, we deploy the systems to licensing offices, and then we'll print that card and mail it out to the residents and send it through the U.S. Postal Service.
Interesting. So can you tell me a little bit about the evolution of identification over the time that you've been involved in the business? Obviously, I know from my personal perspective, driver's licenses have changed in the way they look quite a bit. What kind of changes have you seen, and why did we have to fold those changes in?
It's always been a battle with counterfeit. I mean, that's what really drives the card security. So we're always putting in counterfeiting measures into the card, making it more expensive for those to counterfeit, using more sophisticated equipment, different kind of security inks that are only available to certain vendors, using more sophisticated composite material and plastics that go into the card. So always making those more secure, durable, and more difficult to counterfeit.
Interesting. So let's get into this whole Real ID issue. I understand that things are changing, but I don't exactly understand why. I don't understand why some states are going to be compliant and some aren't going to be compliant. Can you tell me, what is Real ID? Why do we need it? And, why are we seeing some states being compliant and others not? I mean, what makes a Real ID?
Sure. It really started post September 11th. So we all remember that day. And there was a commission appointed by Congress to study what happened. How did these folks get on planes? How did they get driver's licenses? How did they take flight school? They looked at a bunch of different things. And one of the items coming out of that was there's a void. There is no national ID in the US. A lot of countries have those, whether they're developed countries or developing countries, they have national IDs. We don't have that in the US. The de facto national ID is the states issuing their own local driver's license or ID cards. So the commission looked at that and said, hey, there's really no standard way of doing this. There's no, how do you identify these people? How do you make sure there's no fraud in the application process? There's no standards around the cards and how you build the cards to make those more secure. So they looked at all of that and came out with some legislation where they said, hey, we should really be following these standards. And those were passed in 2005, that legislation, and then there's been a bunch of delays. States pushed back on it. This is expensive to change out systems. You have to train staff. You have to do all these things. So there was a cost pushback by the states. States like their independence. They don't always want the federal government telling them how to run their systems. So there was pushback from that standpoint. So it kept getting delayed from 2005, but as of October 1, 2020, you must have a Real ID or other form of acceptable documentation to get on a plane and fly domestically.
Right, I understand that, and that's a really interesting history. I never really thought about the fact that there was no standardized national ID until you actually said that, and of course that's true. Every state has its own ID. So tell me, what makes a Real ID a Real ID? What's unique about it, and how does it work?
It's more around the vetting of the person, the applicant. The state has to collect certain documents now. They have to verify the information on those documents with federal data sources. So they'll actually enter the data from the documents you present. They'll send that to the federal government to get that data verified. And then once all of that verification takes place and they're satisfied, Kevin Freiberger is who he says he is, then it'll finally go to print. And you mentioned this earlier, and I have my Indiana driver's license here. Hopefully we can see it. What you're looking for once the card finally gets printed is this star.
Okay.
And on Indiana, it's gold. New York, it's black, but you're looking for that star. If you have that star, you're good. So, it's a Real ID driver's license.
You mentioned earlier something about making it harder to fake these documents. What's so hard about faking this star? I mean, to be blunt, how is it more secure?
It's not so much about the star itself. It's the how I collect your information. So what states are now focusing on around Real ID is kind of 3 proofs of your identity. They're making sure they can establish identity, and to do that, they accept certain documents. 2 of the most popular are like a birth certificate or a U.S. passport. Then they want to verify your social security number.
Right.
And they'll accept certain documents for that. Social security card, W-2s, pay stubs if they have your social security number, and then they verify that with the federal government. And then they want to make sure you're a resident of that state. So some require multiple proofs that you live in state. And that's a utility bill, a bank statement, insurance statement. They want to make sure you live there. Once you've satisfied all of that, then they'll send your card to print. And again, it's not about the star itself. It's about counterfeiting the entire piece of plastic.
Right.
And the vendors that print these cards are really putting in sophistication and security around how they do that. And each state has a different design, different security features, and those trained individuals at TSA and retail outlets and bars, they know what to look for in law enforcement. They know what to look for those security features in those cards.
Right. Yeah, I spent a lot of time bartending myself, and it changes years and years and years as it goes on. There's always something new coming in there to kind of distinguish one ID from the other. I know exactly what you're talking about. We're running out of time, but I really want to get to a couple more things here. One is this notion that we're still carrying our card around when we've got our mobile devices that, are good enough for making payments with money. Could they ever be enough to serve as our ID, our mobile devices? The second question is around facial recognition. What if we don't have any device or card at all? Can our face become our ID? And are you concerned about any of the security implications around that? So, that's three questions. But the first one is, do you see this going mobile at all? Are we going to stick with the hard card?
We're seeing it go mobile now. There's actually certain states running pilots. They're taking a limited subset of their population. It might be employees that actually work at the B&B or friends and family of those employees. But they're taking a small subset of their population and they're actually trialing mobile ID driver's license on the different platforms, on Apple, on Android. The biggest or one of them holdbacks to that has been standards. Same thing with Real ID and how you print plastic. You got to have standards around a mobile platform. How does it get issued to the mobile platform? How do you secure it on the platform? How does it get shared? Once it's in my phone, how do I share that with law enforcement and the other stakeholders? So those standards are being developed. The states are learning a lot from these pilots, which is helping develop those standards. So we're seeing that movement now. So it's only a matter of time. There's always going to be a piece of plastic, but we see the plastic being more complementary to the primary mobile driver's license in the future.
And where do you see facial recognition technology playing into all of this? You can see a future where you don't have to carry around anything at all. A facial recognition technology would just verify right off the bat. Do you see us going in that direction, or are we going to be carrying around cards for a little bit longer?
We're actually seeing that as well. I don't know if you or your listeners have been to the biometrics terminal in Atlanta's airport, but you can go from curb through TSA security and actually onto your plane, never showing a boarding pass, never showing your government issued identity document. You can check in, you can check your bags, you can go through security, and then get on the actual plane just using facial recognition. They have cameras to do that securely and store that data securely. And we think that's going to grow as well.
Yeah, I was not aware that existed at Atlanta's airport. I got to be honest with you, not a fan of that airport. That place is crazy. But I got to tell you, if I had known that existed, I would have given it a shot. So does it only exist in Atlanta now, or are we seeing it pop up in other international airports across the United States?
I think Atlanta's terminal is the only one curb onto the plane where it's fully implemented. But you're seeing bits and pieces in other airports. I know in Minnesota, you can check your bags and you can check in using it. I don't know if you can get through TSA and onto the plane using it, but they might have certain pieces there too. Detroit has certain pieces. You're seeing it in other airports.
So it's starting to get built out. Well, listen, Kevin, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us today. I actually learned a lot myself, and I know our viewers did as well. We appreciate you visiting with us here at Digital Trends Live.
Great. Thanks again.
That was, once again, Kevin Freiberger with Valid talking about Real ID, facial recognition technology, and where our personal identification is going in the future. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more news for you right here at Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I am Caleb Dennison. Are you getting used to me yet? I hope so, because we got another hour of this jam to go. Right now, it's the 10 o'clock news. I've got three pretty interesting stories I want to run by you, and it's going to start with the Toyota e-Palette. Now, you know the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games are coming up very soon, and we expect this place not just to be an exhibition of amazing athleticism, but also amazing technology. You may have read already that Toyota is going to be coming strong with all kinds of robot technology there, serving people, giving out information. Well, it turns out that Toyota has something called the e-Palette. It's an interesting looking autonomous electric vehicle, and it's going to be responsible for shuttling everybody all over the gigantic Olympic Park. Basically, it's a 12-passenger vehicle that's going to go around at about 12 miles per hour. It's completely autonomous, although there will be a safety officer on board. And these guys are going to be able to shuttle athletes all over the park completely autonomously. Doesn't need any help whatsoever. So they're basically going to have a map of the park in their little computer heads and get people where they need to go. It's going to be great for accessibility. But what's interesting about this isn't just the use of the device at the Olympics. It's what it could be used for in the future, you know, in Japan, ultimately the United States, as an autonomous delivery vehicle. It could be turned into a retail business, possibly. This thing is really kind of interesting looking, and I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. Again, this is the Toyota e-Palette. It's going to be shuttling everybody all over the Olympic Park at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. You want to learn more about it, you can check out our article at digitaltrends.com. We've got it up on the monitor there for you. That is a rendering of the vehicle, but we do expect the actual vehicle to look a lot like that. Basically, it's a little electric shuttle bus. Next up is the Bionic robot arm. Now, this is really interesting. We've seen a lot of robotics popping up, especially on social media these days, where you know, you can see these things operating autonomously, picking things up, doing basic tasks, even, you know, building brick walls. We've seen that. The problem with all these robotics has historically been they are extremely expensive. What we're looking at right now is the Bionic robot appendage. This is basically a robotic arm that you can 3D print if you want to. It's about $250 to get all of the necessary actuators and servos and components and total materials to actually do the printing. So of course you do have to have a 3D printer to make it work, but when it's all said and done, the thing costs about $250 to produce, and it's amazingly well articulated. As you can see in the video here, it can move very smoothly. All of its fingers work very well. It can grab objects. It can articulate itself very well. And it's amazing how well this thing works considering its cost. Now, the creator of this device sees there being some applications in the medical field, obviously, but he's got the plans for this out there on the internet for you to download and create yourself, again, for just $250. That being the case, what we expect is a huge shift in robotics, at-home robotics, prosthesis for folks who are disabled. This could be a game changer as these 3D printers are bringing really complex devices down to a manageable price point for us. I think it's going to change the industry as a whole. It's definitely not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Sorry, that was a subhead on that article, and I just couldn't pass it up because it's too stinking good. Next up, a slightly more serious discussion that I want to have with you about the Ring doorbell and a partnership with local law enforcement. So you may not be aware of this, but Ring doorbells, which I'm sure you are familiar with, you've probably seen videos on Facebook and other social media sites of, ne'er-do-wells lurking around somebody's home. They post it. Have you seen this guy? Who is this person? They robbed me. They damaged my property. But what you may not know is that Ring was actually purchased by Amazon a while back. And recently, Amazon, without really asking anyone or checking with anyone, began partnering with over 400 police departments across the country. The nature of the partnership isn't exactly clear, but it's not a stretch to see that Ring doorbells record video. Amazon has access to that video. Could they be sharing that with these police departments? And where does that stop? Could they also share it with ICE enforcement agents? Well, a civil agency, a civil rights group, has written open letter. 30 different civil rights groups actually have come together to write this letter and say, basically, Amazon, you need to knock it off. You didn't go through any oversight on this thing, and this is a violation of civil rights. In fact, the quote here is that they say it's a serious threat to civil rights and liberties, especially for Black and brown communities already targeted and surveilled by law enforcement. So basically, we're having to trust that Amazon is not going to do anything nefarious with this video footage. Amazon's response was, Ring's mission is to help make neighborhoods safer. We work towards this mission in a number of ways, including providing a free tool that can help build stronger relationships between communities and their local law enforcement agencies. We have taken care to design these features in a way that keep users in control and protect their privacy. Now, ideally, if something bad happens at your home and you get video of the perpetrator, you want to be able to easily share that with law enforcement. Anecdotally, I've had to do that with my own video footage at my home when there have been some issues there, and it's been extremely handy. But without any regulation or oversight, Amazon's not really accountable to anyone. And the civil rights group is basically saying, nope, stop it. You want to do this, you're going to have to go through the right channels. Will Amazon do that, or are they so big that they can just kind of do whatever they want? We shall see. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have another interview. We're going to be speaking to somebody who runs a company called Zapier. I'll find it. Wade Foster. There we go. Just pulled up my notes. Sorry about that, Wade. Wade Foster is the CEO and co-founder of Zapier, which does some really amazing work. And the cool thing about this company is that it's totally remote. We'll be back with that right here on Digital Trends Live. Hey, that was quick. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Caleb Dennison, also known as Not Greg Nibbler, filling in for the great Greg Nibbler while he has some fun down in Las Vegas. I'm sure he's having an amazing time right now. Welcome back. We are about to check in with Wade Foster. He is the CEO and co-founder of Zapier, which does some pretty amazing stuff. They promise to save you a ton of time at work. And an interesting fact about this company is that they are completely remote. So, Wade, welcome to the program. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, tell me a little bit about yourself, and then tell me about your company and what your company does, if you would.
Yeah, so I'm Wade. I'm co-founder CEO at Zapier. We've been in business for about 8 years now. Totally 100% distributed company. So we have 250 folks working here at Zapier spread all over the globe. Our mission is to help people be more productive at work by making it easier to automate the things that they do. So we sync up with tools you probably are commonly using in the workforce, things like G Suite, Slack, Trello, MailChimp, QuickBooks, you name it. We help you automate those things and make your life a little easier.
It kind of sounds like a more advanced version of if this, then that. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, so a little bit. Zapier specializes in helping you at work. IFT, I think, helps you a lot more on the home front.
So give me an example of how Zapier can make my life easier. I use Asana and Slack and Outlook and a ton of other different programs, and they're supposed to integrate with each other, but I have a really tough time making that work. You know, Google Docs and Slack is supposed to be this awesome thing, and frankly, I think it sucks. So tell me how it is that Zapier makes my life easier at work.
One of the simple zaps that I have is I constantly lose messages inside of Slack, and I forget to follow up with my teammates. So I set up a very simple zap where when I star a message inside of Slack, it sends me an email. And then I have a nice queue inside of email where I can go back, remember to reply to my teammates. So it keeps me organized. So that's just a simple example of a type of zap you can set up that makes your life a little easier.
Dude, you just blew my mind. You just completely transformed the way I work. Now, I understand that there is a free version of this and also a paid version. Can you tell me a little bit about the difference between those two?
Yeah, so the free version, you get 5 zaps to kickstart things. And if you decide you want to go automation crazy, then you start to move into our paid plans, which start at $20 a month.
So tell me how you get this set up. Are there sort of like templates that you call them zaps, obviously. Are these sort of like preset up functions that you can just start using right away, or can you customize them, or how does that work?
You got it. Both can happen. So the example I said about starring Slack messages and sending you an email, you go to our Slack page and you can just click, I want to use this, and get it set up right away. Or if you're a little more creative and you say, hey, I wonder if I could set something up that does this with maybe like, you know, my forms on my website, MailChimp and Salesforce, and I have this really particular thing envisioned in my head, you can create them from scratch from our simple setup editor as well.
Now, one of our producers, Jess Turbaugh, is a big user of your platform and says your customer service is like absolutely amazing. And I said, wait, do you have the free version or the paid version? She uses the free version, and she's talking about how amazing your customer service is. That's a real testimonial. So you've clearly put together quite a team. Can you tell me a little bit about the team and why you decided to be a completely remote company?
Yeah, so we started out as a side project. Turns out side projects can't afford offices. So that's why we started as a remote company. Then when we started hiring people, we ended up hiring a few people, an old roommate of mine that was in Chicago. We hired someone, an engineer I'd used to work with that was back in Columbia, Missouri. So we were 5 people in 3 different cities right out the bat. And we noticed we were shipping our new features really quickly. We had we were earning more customers, earning more revenue. Team seemed to be happy. Customers seemed to be happy. So we felt like, hey, I think we've tapped into a secret advantage here. Let's try and scale up the company remotely. So that's what set us down that path.
That's super interesting. I have personally experienced that it can be kind of difficult to manage relationships with coworkers over a purely text sort of interface. So how do you do that? How do you keep everybody together on the same page, kind of motivated as a team? And do you guys ever like physically get together and hang out and have discussions and work like that?
Yeah, you all just saw some B-roll footage of us in Minneapolis. So we had the whole team out to Minneapolis because the in-person bonds are still really important. They help you connect with each other. And then you take that back to sort of remote working and you feel like you know each other a little bit better. And then, of course, technology like Zoom has gotten really good. So video conferencing helps you get to know each other. And it makes the sort of Slack-based, text-based communication feel just that much more human.
So, you know, when you got started, I'm sure that you had in mind a certain growth strategy, how you were going to kind of get the business up and running and then grow it into what it is today. But things don't always go as you initially planned them. How did you guys get started, and how have things kind of shifted over the years as you've grown?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, Zapier started as a side project. We didn't even know if this was going to be a business. In fact, I would have been excited at the time if it could have become my full-time job. I was like, oh boy, wouldn't it be awesome if our company is a thing that I get to work on all the time? And so we worked nights and weekends on this thing for about 9 months before we were able to fully go full-time on it. But once we started to see the momentum, I remember our very first customer struggled so much setting up his first app. But once he got it set up, he was like, this is going to change my business. And once I heard that, I felt like, wow, if we can really make this easy enough for folks to use, we have the opportunity to really help a lot of folks. And so now today we have 4 million registered users of the product. And I feel like yet still we can help so many more other folks automate the sort of tedious work that they do day in and day out.
Super, super interesting. Another thing I found interesting, and I haven't really been able to dig in this very deeply, but apparently you guys generate a fastest growing apps report, and then you issue that. Can you tell me a little bit about this report? You know, why do you put it out? And more importantly, what somebody could learn from this? What have you learned from it?
Well, I think one of the fun parts of working on Zapier is we connect everything. So because we connect everything, we get to see what tools are being adopted in the workplace before everyone else. And with that, we feel like we can sort of help other folks maybe get a sneak peek of what some of the new technology that's coming down the pipe is. And one of the interesting things we learned this year was just how prevalent vertical specific tools are going to be. So you have things like CRM software like Salesforce that's incredibly popular. But what we're starting to see is people create things like CRMs for real estate agents or CRMs for lawyers, very vertical specific tools that help them out. And these products are able to target into the needs of that particular industry in a much more specific way than a horizontal tool could. And so you see those types of products growing really fast because a real estate agent sees a real estate specific CRM and goes, wow, you really understand me and my needs, and I think I'd like to use that software. So that's something we're seeing a lot more these days, is that these very specific, very targeted tools are getting a lot of adoption.
Super interesting. So you mentioned before that you started out as a side project. You've got 4 million active users right now, which is some huge growth. What's next?
You know, I think for us, our job is to make this automation really easy for everyone. You mentioned, you know, someone on your team using Zapier, but how do we make it so that everyone on the team uses Zapier? It feels like as easy as sending an email, Zapier should be that easy. And so we're going to keep working on making it that easy. We're going to keep working on introducing people to all the different use cases that they can try to benefit from it, because there is something here for everyone.
Well, I mean, speaking for myself, I'm definitely going to check this out more because it sounds like something I could actually use in my life. I think a lot of people could. I have no problem giving that endorsement. If somebody wants to learn more about Zapier, where do they need to go?
Zapier.com. You can check it out. You can get started for free. We have that free plan, so start trying it around. If you're looking for inspiration, go check out the blog. We write a lot about different use cases, but we also just write about productivity in general. So if you want to be more productive at work, you might like the blog too.
Fantastic. Well, Wade, this has been a super great conversation and one of personal benefit for me, so happy times there. Thank you for joining us on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and good luck with that Slack usage.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. Once again, that's Wade Foster. He's the CEO and co-founder of Zapier, which basically ties together a bunch of different programs to make your life easier and your work easier. When we come back, we're going to do a quick little rewind and talk about everything we covered today. We're going to be right back with digital trends. Oh, no, we're not. So here's the thing, guys. This is my first time doing it. Greg Nibbler is gone. He left me in the hot seat, and I'm doing the best I can to get through this crazy shindig. And it turns out that the producers don't want me to go to another break. They just want me to wrap the show. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we covered today. Number one, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is going to Washington again. He's going to be talking to Congress about Libra cryptocurrency and whether that's a thing that they should even be doing. Congress is very skeptical, and frankly, so are we, and so are a whole bunch of other different companies. Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal have retracted. Is Libra going to go forward? Well, we may find out when he visits Congress on October 23rd. We also covered how Tesla is keeping its EVs charged amongst a whole bunch of different power outages going on in Northern California right now. They sent out a quick message to their users and are pointing them to places they can charge their EVs while the rest of the northern state of California is going dark. We also took a look at Apple, which has yanked an app that a lot of protesters in Hong Kong were using. It's a big move by the company and one that's being seen as potentially censorship across the board. And then, of course, there was another story that I can't remember right now. I'm going to hit my notes because, you know what, I'm shameless about that. No, I'm not. I have no idea what that story was. We spoke with Zapier CEO co-founder just a moment ago. We also took a look at a really interesting device that can scan the undercarriage of your car so that you know what you're buying before you buy it. That's it for my time at Digital Trends Live. I am going to get out of here. Thank you for joining with me and sitting with me through this crazy thing called Digital Trends Live. It has been an experience, to be sure. We will see you again next week with a brand new episode. Thanks for watching.
Hey, this is Greg with Digital Trends, and we're on the show floor, and we actually just ran into Hammer. Yeah. So awesome to see you here. How are you having the show so far? How are you enjoying it?
Well, I'm enjoying a lot of the innovation. Certainly some of the things I'm seeing here at Intel's booth, cutting edge. I like it. I think we have some good product to look forward to going forward.
What kind of technology do you use in creating music now?
Well, not necessarily creating music, but the marketing, promotion, and connecting with the end user with music. So social media is my main focus. I think that it is the end game combined with analytics of how to value music going forward in the Web 2.0 type of model for the music industry. So that and collaborative, collaborative video, socializing, I think that's the future.
So really like connecting the artist to the actual listener and in a more direct way?
Well, in a simplified way, yes, yes. But at the end of the day, to actually use social media, new powerful platforms, again, collaborative solutions to really make the end user be a participant in the overall artist from an artistic standpoint, from a human level, real communication. So this is not like you and your PR person and your agent and your manager connecting with the people, but you and the end user, so that he can appreciate your art more. And at the end of the day also, he can access your art, access your concert, access your tickets through the relationship that you guys have, and the tools that it takes to empower that and make that happen. That's what I'm all about.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for stopping by to talk to us, and hope you have a great show.
All right, you too. Take care.
All right, thanks a lot. This is Greg with Digital Trends at CES 2009.